we got a lot of snow. We don't ever usually get 8.5 inches of snow. Like maybe a once every 5 years type of thing. So I did the only reasonable thing that somebody who gets 8.5 inches of snow once every 5 years should do. I bought a plow. So that's where we're coming today, because we got a plow. You can also see that I'm about as tall as the plow. 66-inch plow to go with 66-inch wide, 64-inch wide. It's now 66-inch wide with the higher offset wheels. RZR Turbo XP Turbo. We bought this from Rocky Mountain, and we bought it through the side-by-side blog link. Support those guys if you can. When it did snow and we went out and shoveled the driveway, we basically couldn't move the next day. It's the first time that we had gotten, you know, a large amount of snow, and 8.5 inches may not be large where you're at. We went and we bought the plow, and we're gonna clean up our driveway today, assuming we can get everything in. Things you should know: if you're gonna buy a plow, when we bought this thing, about 500 bucks. We're not sponsored by anybody, but if we were, this would be, you know, a really nice piece. So if you look at a few things, you know, what is this? Maybe 3/16 of an inch thick. It's got a wear bar down here on the bottom that is probably 1/8 of an inch, if I had to guess. It's got some pretty heavy mounting points in the back here that are doubled 1/8 inch steel. Pretty good stuff as far as I can see. The welds, excuse me, are very high quality. We like the Tusk stuff, the Rocky Mountain house brand. We've got a bag here in the middle of the RZR. We have their heated seats. Pretty good setup. So we're gonna cover today how we take what came in 3 packages, very large packages. Again, another joke.
Full of it. Saving it up for months.
Yeah, that's right. So here's what each box contains. Big old box, big old plow. Medium old box has all of the like down tube, push tube connections that go from the plow to the machine. And because of the snow, our third box is still on the way. Box that's missing has the actual machine specific bracket in it. So while we're waiting on that, we're gonna go ahead and put together the other 2 boxes. A few things came in. We got a hardware bag. We got instructions down yonder. We got, what do they call this? A push tube assembly. Like I said, the thing that we're missing is the bracket that's gonna connect everything yonder, here, to the actual machine. And your machine may look a little different than this. When we installed the winch, I didn't get the finish panel that goes over here. I need to actually probably order that. Yeah, you're effectively just gonna install it down here. And you do have to have a winch in order to make something like this work. So don't get any wise ideas that you can shortcut the winch and, you know, still have to plow. A couple of things here. If you look at some of this hardware, it's pretty freaking ridiculous. Very thick steel, really thick cotter pins, very thick hardware. That's what she said. You can see also it's kind of square. It's not kind of square tube. It is square tube. Pretty okay welds. I mean, maybe they're not the best that I've ever seen, but they're all right. They'll do. Everything's gusseted. You can see here. This piece is the selector, which is pretty cool. So they have this angle plate here, and it's going to pivot on this point that's up here. What happens when everything is fully set up, you have this point fixed, you have this point fixed. You can do this thing, pull up, and it will allow you to spin this so that you can get a fancy angle blade like, you know, all the big time snowplow guys. So what we're gonna do is create this little sandwich here where we've got the selector, we've got the push tube, and then we've got the actual angle plate. And this is not what they're called in the instructions. I'm just kind of making this shit up as I go. So When that all gets sandwiched together, like I said, you can just pull up on this. The angle plate will swing side to side and your plow will be mobile from an angle standpoint. There's tons of videos out there if you need instructions on how to actually put this thing together. Recommend going out and at least just watching maybe the Rocky Mountain video. It's pretty straightforward. The actual instructions, not that great, but you know, they'll do in a pinch. Generally, if you can just position the pieces like this, you're probably going to be able to figure out exactly what you need to do. So there's a pretty good diagram in the back of the instructions that will probably do you mo better than if you actually follow the instructions. All right, up next.
I could help you, but I'm on camera.
You could, but you didn't. So this thing's pretty freaking heavy. I mean, if you're looking for something light, I think I'd go with a plastic plow. This thing's probably all of 60 or 70 pounds if I had to guess. You saw the time lapse of putting this together because we're waiting on the other thing. I think the next logical thing is to attach the push tube and the angle assembly to the actual blade now. So we're gonna go do that. Big ass bracket came in. And it's serious, probably 3/16 inch steel. Here's the interesting thing. There are instructions that say install the front nut plate here. You might be able to see that, you might not. But guess what? There's the front nut plate installation location. And it has our winch mounting plate, the fair lead mounting plate that goes from the front, which is up here, all the way up to what's right here. And this just mounts this thing that guides the winch rope back in. So if you are planning to install one of these plows and you have a KFI winch, you might want to think about how you're going to get all of this stuff out and get it attached to the front of the vehicle. So for now, I believe what I'm going to do is try to remove the 2 bolts that I just showed you and install this with I don't know if I'm going to be able to have enough bolt length given how thick this is, but perhaps they provided me with enough bolt length to get through this and the winch mount plate there.
Action.
Okay.
I'm fired.
What?
I'm fired.
So, good news. We were able to pull out the 2 large bolts that make up the KFI fair lead mounting point. Still got 2 up here. So the fair lead is 2 here, 2 here. I guess it's fair lead mount technically because this is fair lead. But using the supplied hardware that came with the actual winch mount, I was able to just use the longer threaded bolts and kind of smash the fair lead between the actual winch mount that is specific to the machine and the frame, I guess. The other thing that's interesting is when I received this is a XP 1000 mount, not a XP Turbo mount. So if you're waffling back and forth on whether or not to buy this and you think that there's maybe some fitment issues, so far, I mean, other than conquering the winch issue, I'm sorry, the fair lead issue, no issues so far. So the XP 1000 kit appears to fit the XP Turbo. The one thing I'm not super crazy about, and Doug warned me on this when I sent him an email about it, is we do lose, you know, what is that, almost 2 inches of ground clearance right there in the front. So if you want to run the winch mount all the time, and they recommend that you don't, but I mean, the likelihood that I'm going to take this off for the rest of the year is probably fairly low. If you want to run it all the time, you probably are going to bottom out and scrape this thing on some stuff. So you might want to take it off. That's what they recommend. You might not. So that's it. Bracket's good. Back to finishing up everything that we've got on the actual blade and the, what do they call that? Plow tube or something like that, this thing. And we should be ready to go in the next 15 minutes or so.
Almost forgot about you guys. So, I got all my tools put away. I got our situation over here in the small part of the garage squared away. Initial impressions. Super easy from an install standpoint. I ran into the one hiccup with the fair lead bracket on the front. And, you know, not a huge deal. Something that I was able to pretty easily get around. I'll tell you that the performance was pretty good. Probably 7 out of 10. It definitely is going to do a much better job if you have a lot of snow on the ground. I don't know that you want to break it out for 2 inches, although, you know, it's probably completely fine. We have some irregularities in our driveway, so the plow being wider is going to want to ride on the top of those irregularities, and with that, you're probably not going to get nearly as much snow off of it as if, you know, it just completely rode on a flat surface. So, you know, pretty good there. It did add, from a storage standpoint, it did add a lot of length to the machine. So even with the winch basically bound up, with it pulling everything all the way up, it probably still added a good 1.5 feet to the machine. So what I actually ended up having to do is this. You can see that I unhooked the winch and ended up kind of sliding it under the front of the RZR, which it does really well. So in this instance, it probably adds, what, maybe 6 inches worth of additional length to the machine. So, you know, all told, at $500, would I have rather bought a cheap snowblower? No, definitely not. I'm gonna have a hell of a lot more fun with this thing than I am with any snowblower, and it's probably gonna do just as good of a job. The little bit of snow that it left on the ground is gonna be eaten up by sunlight, and we'll be in completely good shape there. I did have one spring pop off while I was plowing, but that's because I bound it up on the curb. And when it popped back, there's not enough tension on the spring there, so I probably need to do a little bit with that and tighten that up. But you know, all told, good solid purchase for $500. I'd do it any day. Rocky Mountain was fantastic on the shipping. They knocked it out of the park. The only thing that happened was we had a snowstorm. So it would have been here yesterday, which would have been less than a 24-hour turnaround. We're fairly close to their Kentucky warehouse, so you know, maybe that's expected, maybe not, but they had it in stock, ready to go, you know, for when the snowstorm hit, and we're going to get some more snow, like I was saying. So really enjoyed plowing. That was pretty cool. So if you want to get plowed, then this is probably the right purchase. The RZR did really well. One thing that I maybe didn't have a full respect for was how much the plow was going to unload the front suspension. So with the plow on the front, you know, there's what, maybe 100 pounds hanging off the front of the machine. So, you know, it's going to compress the shocks. When you put the plow on the ground, you feel the whole front of the machine raise up, and it feels like it's 3 or 4 inches. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, but I wouldn't be surprised also if it was a 1/2 inch and it just felt like it was 3 or 4 inches. It's a really, really good setup for the price. So that's it. Really appreciate you guys watching. You know, it goes without saying, everybody says it. We really appreciate you guys liking, subscribing, sharing with your friends. I'm not going to be one to plead for, you know, everybody to go do that. It certainly helps. So, you know, give it a thumbs up. I just said I wasn't going to do that though. So don't give it a thumbs up. And we'll catch you next time. And thanks again for watching. And we'll see you later. Hi everybody. It's been a minute. We've been dealing with things, let's say, things that I'm not allowed to say on YouTube. So, politics aside, I guess maybe it's not politics, whatever your beliefs are aside, we haven't posted a video in a long time, so wanted to come to you guys today and just say hey and check in and confirm that we are indeed alive.
Freezing.
Freezing, but alive, yeah. So